August 11, 2025, 12:04 p.m. The calm waters near Scarborough Shoal are about to explode into chaos. Imagine playing chess at 100 miles per hour, where the pieces are warships and one wrong move could start a war. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? Just 12 miles from Scarborough Shoal's coral reefs, a Philippine Coast Guard ship called BRP Suluan is heading north. She's escorting two small civilian boats loaded with food and fuel for local fishermen. A simple humanitarian mission that's about to turn deadly. But they're not alone. A massive Chinese Coast Guard ship, hull number CCG-3104, is chasing them like a predator stalking its prey. Its water cannons are already firing, sending powerful streams of water across Suluan's deck. Now, don't think of these as garden hoses. These water jets hit with the force of a sledgehammer, strong enough to shatter windows and knock sailors overboard. The chase is on, but the ocean has more surprises than anyone expected. Suddenly, from the left side, another massive ship appears, a Chinese Navy destroyer, hull number 164. This isn't just a Coast Guard vessel, this is a full military warship loaded with missiles and built for battle. It's moving fast through these contested waters. Three ships are now converging on a collision course with only seconds to avoid disaster. But who will blink first? The scene unfolds like a deadly triangle. The Chinese Coast Guard captain, focused entirely on intercepting the Philippine ship, throws his wheel hard to cut them off. The destroyer, unaware of what's happening, keeps charging forward on its original path. Two Chinese ships, one deadly collision course, zero room for error. In these waters, there is no undo button, and explaining why two ships from the same country just crashed into each other isn't going to be easy. To the outsider, Scarborough Shoal might look like a tropical paradise with just some coral reefs and beautiful blue water. But in the South China Sea, it's a powder keg waiting to explode. Located just 124 miles from the Philippines coast, international law says this should be Philippine territory under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. But in 2012, Chinese ships took control and never left, turning paradise into a fortress. Since then, Beijing has enforced its claim with rotating Coast Guard ships, fishing militia, and when they want to send a strong message, full military warships. Neither side is backing down. On August 11th, the Philippine mission was straightforward. Escort two relief boats to fishing areas near the shoal, deliver supplies, and head home. But any Philippine ship that gets close to Scarborough Shoal gets shadowed, sometimes aggressively by Chinese vessels. That's how CCG-3104 got involved. What started as a routine supply run was about to become an international incident. The destroyer wasn't there for humanitarian work either. Hull 164 is a Type 052D destroyer, basically a floating weapons platform packed with missiles, advanced radar, and enough firepower to sink multiple ships. Normally, these vessels coordinate their movements carefully, but when speeds are high, tempers are hot, and radio communication breaks down, things can go very wrong very fast. The moment BRP Suluan cleared Scarborough's waters, the chase began. CCG-3104, weighing 1,500 tons, pushed its engines to maximum speed, spray flying off its bow as it closed in on the Philippine ship. The goal wasn't subtle. Use the water cannon to force the Suluan off course. It was a perfect intimidation tactic until pride became their biggest enemy. Water cannons are China's preferred harassment tool in these situations. They're non-lethal on paper, but at close range, they can shatter glass, destroy equipment, and cause dangerous flooding. For Suluan's crew, every blast meant diving for cover behind protective barriers. What made this chase different was the Chinese cutter's approach. Instead of following directly behind, the captain swung wide to the left, trying to cut across Suluan's path. A classic interception move used to force ships to change course. But in focusing so intently on their target, they forgot about their own teammate. At 20 knots, there's almost no margin for error. Radio calls from the Philippine ship went unanswered. The Chinese cutter kept pressing forward, sirens blaring over the water cannon's roar. The Philippine vessel held its course, careful not to make any aggressive moves. Then came the miscalculation. Through all the spray and chaos, the bulk of the Chinese destroyer was getting closer. The Coast Guard cutter's intercept path wasn't just crossing the Philippine ship's route, it was heading straight into their own destroyer's path. The cutter captain, laser-focused on the Philippine target, pushed through without noticing how little space was left. By the time the destroyer's crew spotted the danger and tried to signal a warning, physics had already taken over. The hunter had become so focused on its prey that it forgot about the apex predator in its own pack. The impact was brutal. The cutter's bow slammed into the destroyer's side, crumpling inward like a crushed soda can. The forward gun mount twisted from the force. For the destroyer, the damage was mainly scratches. Long gouges scraped into the side plating, but the shockwave rattled through the entire ship. On the cutter's forward deck, several crew members had been visible moments before. When the collision happened, they disappeared from view, thrown back by the sudden impact. Whether they were injured or just knocked out of sight was unclear. In the chaos that followed, silence became more frightening than the crash itself. The scene immediately after was pure chaos. The destroyer's horn blared, the cutter's engines died. Over radio, the Philippine crew offered immediate help. Medical aid, search and rescue, damage control teams. Every offer was met with dead silence. The destroyer slowly backed away. The cutter sat low in the water, bow damaged and engines dead. In military terms, it was out of action. A Chinese pursuit designed to intimidate had just ended with one of their own ships crippled in front of the very vessel they were trying to scare. Pride had cost them more than just damaged steel. It had cost them face in front of their enemies. Back on the Philippine ship, the crew watched in shock and disbelief. Moments earlier, they'd been bracing for another water cannon attack. Instead, they witnessed Chinese ships colliding with each other, an impact that sent a deep metallic boom rolling across the water. Through binoculars, Philippine officers saw crew members on the damaged cutter stumble and fall. The cutter's crew had been working on an exposed deck without heavy safety gear, and at that speed, even a sudden stop can throw someone several meters. Within seconds, the Philippine radio operator was broadcasting offers of help in both English and Mandarin. Chinese vessel, we can provide medical assistance. We can assist in search and rescue. No response. The offer was repeated multiple times, still nothing. Within hours, Manila made its position clear. Philippine Coast Guard spokesman Commodore J. Torella called the incident reckless and dangerous behavior, saying the Chinese cutter's captain had violated international maritime safety rules. He emphasized that the maneuver risked lives on all three ships and could have triggered a much larger crisis. Torella also confirmed that Philippine crews had immediately offered assistance after the crash. We offered medical help and search and rescue. They refused. That tells you everything you need to know, he told reporters. For Manila, the refusal reinforced their argument that Beijing was willing to risk sailor safety to avoid political embarrassment. Beijing's response was completely different. Chinese Coast Guard spokesman Gan Yu acknowledged a maritime encounter, but made no mention of any collision. Instead, he described the operation as routine law enforcement, monitoring and controlling actions within what China claims as its territorial waters. No photos of the damaged ship were released by Chinese media, no admission that anything had gone wrong. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. responded the next day, promising that Philippine ships would continue operating in these waters. We will not be deterred. These are our fishermen, our seas, and our responsibility, he said during a press conference. The contrast was stark. One side described a dangerous accident and near disaster. The other side treated it as a routine patrol with nothing unusual happening. There were no diplomatic phone calls, no joint investigation, no shared statements from either navy. In the South China Sea, silence after an incident can be just as revealing as the incident itself. Scarborough Shoal is much more than disputed territory. It's a critical piece in one of the world's most important strategic puzzles. The shoal sits within the Philippines' 200-mile exclusive economic zone, which under international law should make it Philippine territory. But China has controlled it since 2012, maintaining a near-permanent presence with Coast Guard ships and fishing militia. In 2016, an international court ruled that China's claim was invalid under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. Beijing completely rejected the ruling. The August 11th incident is just the latest in a series of confrontations. In recent years, Chinese Coast Guard ships have used laser devices to temporarily blind Philippine sailors, blocked supply missions to Philippine military outposts, and rammed fishing boats. In each case, Beijing insists it's just enforcing its sovereignty. What makes Scarborough especially important is its location near major shipping routes. The South China Sea handles over 60% of global sea trade, worth about $3.4 trillion every year. Oil tankers, container ships, and cargo vessels pass through daily. A conflict here wouldn't just affect the Philippines and China, it would impact the entire world economy. The military situation is equally serious. The South China Sea is now filled with China's artificial islands, equipped with runways, radar systems, and missile batteries. From these positions, China's Navy can monitor and potentially control huge areas of ocean. If Scarborough were militarized, it would extend that control even closer to the Philippine mainland. For Beijing, this incident will likely be classified and forgotten. For Manila, it's already part of their growing evidence file, proof that even routine harassment carries real dangers. The South China Sea has seen decades of close calls, jets flying dangerously close to each other, ships crossing paths with meters to spare, fishing boats disappearing after encounters with military vessels. But it's rare for the danger to turn inward like this. August 11th showed that when tensions run high and coordination breaks down, even allies can become enemies in seconds. This collision immediately raises questions about the dangers of the ongoing territorial disputes being instigated by China. What exactly do the Chinese want, short of an outright war? If you want to dive deeper into these maritime stories, check our video How One Ukrainian Drone Sank Russia's Most Advanced Warship. Link in the description below.